Thank you, Kara, for that nice introduction. Throw me under the bus on the Frisbee there, right? That's all good. But good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, I know that was a tough panel, but we're still awake, right? Come on. Well, it's my pleasure to be here today before this distinguished group. Like many of you in the panel before us today, we're reflective of the difficult economic times that our state faces. And we, too, as a company and an industry, share much of the pain of a continued reduction in our commodity prices. I was glad to hear some of the positive news yesterday from our neighbors at ASRC and ConocoPhillips. And if there's a little bit of a silver lining of activity on the North Slope, I'd like to think that Kalis Energy is a part of that. So, speaking of silver linings, the only thing between me and a plane to Hawaii is this speech. So let's get on with it, shall we? All right, so quickly I'm just going to run through a little bit of who is Kalis, just as a reminder, sort of our year in review. And I do want to get, obviously, into the oil tax credit in a little bit more granular detail, and then some closing thoughts. Let me see if I can do like everybody else and hit the big green button. If you can see that, I know there's a lot of text on there, so I'll just run through it quickly. For those of you that might be unfamiliar with Kalis, I'll just take a brief moment just to kind of run through this. We're a private exploration and production company that purchased the Pioneer Ugaric assets in 2014. Our main headquarters here in Anchorage. We also have an office in Dallas. The founders and senior management team that have worked together for literally over 3 decades. They are explorationists at heart, and together they have worked many international plays and found significant successes through their multiple ventures. Jim Musselman, who's our president and CEO, he likes to say that we're the poster child of SB 21. And it's true. Really, only after SB 21 was passed into law did Jim Musselman and his group decide that they were going to look domestically really for the first time, and they found great investment in the Pioneer Ugaric asset. You know, SB 21, as Kara indicated earlier, really is an integrated oil tax policy, and it has allowed us to deploy a great deal of capital in the last year. So let's get into that. So 1 year ago, our Senior Vice President of Alaska Operations, Pat Foley, stood here before you. It was the first opportunity for Kalis Energy to present before a group such as this. And he said that Kalis is going to be committed to Alaska. We're going to be a serious investor. And we're going to move swiftly, but we're going to move safely. And we've kept to that word. To just orient you quickly to the map that's before you, and I apologize, I know there's a lot of small text at the top there, but as you look, obviously that's the North Slope of Alaska, in case anyone is confused on what that map is. But on the North Slope, you'll look in the middle, and all of the blue that you see on that particular map represent our unit and exploration acreage holdings. In the middle is our Ugaric unit. On the right and the left side represent our new exploration acreage, and I'll get into a little bit more. But it's been a busy year for little Kalis Energy, and I want to share some, but we're proud of it, and I want to share just some quick statistics of our year in review. So we've acquired interest now in over 400,000 exploration acreage slope-wide. We shot more than 200 square miles of 3D seismic. We sanctioned the new oil development, Nuna, much of which you worked on, many of you contractors in our audience today, helped us build a 22-acre drill pad today, or this last year, excuse me. We hit an all-time production record in our Ugaric unit at 25,000 barrels per day. So we've had a busy year. In fact, last year was our busiest year in 7 years. We hired almost 900 contractors to help us deploy on our seismic, on our civil work, and our production work. So let me ask you, is SB 21 working? We think it is. Let's really hear it again. Is SB 21 working? Yes. It is. We think it is. Despite oil prices, which certainly isn't helping, the oil tax system on the North Slope, it's competitive, and it's working for Alaska. So I'm just going to get a little bit more in detail about some of those blue areas that we showed you, that I just previously showed you. So here's our Eastern Slope exploration acreage. We have about 350,000 acres on the East Slope. You can see it's adjacent to Point Thompson and Badami. We shot a large-scale $24 million seismic program. It was a very difficult seismic program. You can see that a lot of this is adjacent to the Dalton Highway, which was impacted by the overflow last year. It made it very, very difficult process. we're hopeful to do additional seismic in this area and hopefully drill our first exploration wells in the 2017 season. What I would say to you is that this type of activity is significant, and it wouldn't happen without these tax credits that you hear of, in particular the exploration tax credits. And so what does Alaska get for that? What I would say is that the state of Alaska, in particular DNR and the Department of Oil and Gas, gets great reams of data that for the work that we do in this seismic and any exploration activity. And so much so, I know that Director Feige indicated before the tax credit working group that if they had to go on the street to get this sorts of seismic or well log data, it would cost them a lot more than what we provide them through the exploration credit program. In the central part of the state is our Agurk unit. And most of you are probably pretty familiar with Agurk. We've been producing there since 2008. Through our legacy company, Pioneer, we became the first independent operator on the North Slope when we first, again, 2008, started our first production. I like to call it the little island that could. We've been doing a lot of great work from this 6-acre island since that time, and we've had some great milestones this year. We've invested over $2 billion to date, and we have produced now over 23 million barrels of oil from this little island. We're pretty proud about that. We've got about 100 million barrels left, and we're going to have a capital program that's going to be anywhere from $200 to $300 million a year to continue to extract those resources from that area. And we've learned a lot from the work that we have done there. You know, oftentimes you hear in the news and whatnot about smaller independent companies that aren't in a taxpayer status. And they sort of say that maybe a little bit, not in the nicest of tones sometimes. And so why haven't we paid taxes yet? Well, we work in a net profit tax system, which means you have to make a profit to pay the tax. After all of these years, we have not yet made a profit after investing all of this money into this resources. Does that mean we haven't paid anything to the state of Alaska? Absolutely not. Besides the ancillary economic benefits through jobs and producing the oil, we have now paid to the state of Alaska over $125 million in royalties and property taxes. Those go to help fund education, healthcare, and of course the permanent fund through our royalties. So we believe that we're adding a lot of value to the state of Alaska. Our Nuna development. Many of you are aware of the Nuna development. This is a big highlight for us. We were able to sanction this project last year in partnership through some royalty modification with the state of Alaska. Kalis is a 100% interest owner on this particular asset. We believe there's about 100 million barrels of oil in place. Now this is, and we're hopeful for first oil by October of 2017. What I would say, though, is this is a very capital-intensive project. This is an area with very, very tight reservoirs in the Torok area, we call it, and some Brookian turbidites. It will require us to put in some hydraulic fracturing that will be some of the largest on the North Slope in both the production and the injection wells. This will be the first time this will be done on the North Slope. But we believe that what we learn here at Nuna will be technology and lessons learned that we can take slope-wide. However, it is a project that has been impacted by low oil price, as well as the current tax credit instability. We're working hard to cut projected costs, and I look forward to hearing from Greg later on all the lessons he learns about cutting costs as well. But we're looking forward to keeping this project on track. When it's developed, it will be a welcome addition to the North Slope and provide great economic benefit to Alaska. Okay, so here's probably our most exciting news kind of for today. In last summer, Kalis acquired a 75% working interest ownership in Nordac's Smith Bay oil leases, also known as Tulamonic. It's a play that's been reviewed for many years by many seasoned geologists and the state of Alaska. We're lucky to have a lot of great 3D seismic data moving into this particular project. It's regarded as a potential true billion-barrel field. We'll find out. We spent the last few months barging spud critical equipment to Point Lonely for staging, and we're planning on 2 exploration wells with the first in early February. This is a huge operational lift. Smith Bay is a long way, really, from most anywhere. And I'd like to give a particular shout out, if you will, to our support partners, both Cruise Construction and all of our marine folks, Bryce, Foss. Really, we could not get out there without your support. Thank you very much for what you did it safely, and we appreciate all your partnership. I'd also like to say thank you to Doyon Drilling. They're our partner for the exploration drilling program, and we're really pleased to have them on board for this critical piece. But given recent events in the Arctic, these are the things that Alaskans should be excited about. But let me be clear. This activity would not be possible without the partnership of the state of Alaska through its oil tax credit program. So let's talk about credits. Let's talk about credits. You know, credits are in the news quite a bit, and it seems to me there's a lot of misperception or misunderstanding about really how refundable credits work. And I gotta admit, my neck hairs kind of rise a little bit when I hear people in the news say, oh, it's just free money that we're going to give to the oil companies, or it's found money, as our Australian partner liked to say in the Wall Street Journal. So what is it? Is it really just free money? I like to think of it more of a rebate, right? I think that's a little bit more true. Let's say Damien Bilbao, I don't know if he's here today, is in charge of getting all of the suite of appliances for his $60 billion house with his partners that he talked about yesterday. He's going to go to the different stores. He's going to go to Sears. He's going to go to SBS. He's going to go to Lowe's. But SBS decides that they're going to give a 30% rebate on all of the appliances he can buy. So what does he do? He goes and he buys them, right? They move product. They are able to keep their employees employed. They keep the lights on. And a year and a half later, after he's filled out his form and applied for his rebate, he gets a check in the mail. Deal done. The refundable tax credit system on the North Slope in particular works very similarly. And I apologize, this is kind of a dumb slide. It's a little busy, but I'll walk you through it. On the top part, what I'd like to express is that this is a little bit of a timeline on how a refundable tax credit really works. So a company identifies a project. We go forth and we'll hire Alaskans, we'll drill wells, we'll shoot seismic. The Alaskan economy benefits from all of this, this introduction of capital into the system for some time. Then we take our tax returns, we go to the Department of Revenue, and we fill out our application. Department of Revenue takes a look at that, and they audit it. Let me be very clear, the Department of Revenue has great auditors. They don't have enough auditors, probably, because unfortunately they have a little bit of a backlog on a lot of items, but they do a great job. My point to all of that is they're actually protecting Alaska. They're making sure that under the letter of the law, what we're asking for in that return is prescribed under law. So we're not getting this like free money piece. They're making sure that what we're doing is appropriate. Then they give us a cash certificate, and we'll take that in, and we can either cash it, we can transfer it, or we can assign it. Now that can take, I'll point you to the bottom part of that slide. And the bottom part of the slide show you two tax credits. Those are the only two refundable credits left on the North Slope of Alaska. It's the loss carry forward credit and the exploration credit. So just relative timelines for the loss carry forward credit, it's about, once you do your tax return, it's about 120 days after you've done your activity and your tax return. The exploration credit, on the other hand, can take years in auditing process to get your tax return, to get your cash certificate. So all that being said is that it's not necessarily this free money. It has to be earned. We spend that money in our economy. And if I think of lots of places for the state of Alaska, as I think about Cheryl's presentation, that we spend our money, and there's lots of great places. There's no other industry that has the economic impact than the oil and gas industry. Every one job creates 20 jobs in our economy. Isn't that a great place for us to invest our money? Unfortunately, the exploration credit is set to sunset in the middle part of next year. Now, I don't know about you. Maybe it's the right vehicle, maybe it's the not right vehicle. That's for the policymakers to decide. But it seems to me we're going to need every single drop of oil for as many players as possible to help keep our pipeline viable. We have billions of oil left on the slope. Having active explorers is a critical component of getting that oil to market. The exploration credit is I believe, is a powerful incentive to promote new oil development. And then let me quickly turn to the loss carry forward credit, because the loss carry forward credit will then be the only refundable credit then available on the North Slope. This particular credit allows companies that are investing so much that they are in a loss position to redeem a portion of that loss via credits. It's typical in net tax systems and is very important to our smaller producers during early appraisal and development years. This was a credit that was created as part of a larger policy of consideration. As Kara noted, our SB 21, it doesn't work in a vacuum, and we'll talk more about that later. But when we moved to a net tax policy, this was a core component, a foundational component of that system. In fact, both legislative consultants, Analytica, and as you see here, our current tax director, recognize that this particular credit works as a playing field leveler between the majors and the independents. And as I said, it's an integral part of the SB 21 net tax system. In our opinion, should be considered very carefully as policymakers discuss any potential oil tax policy changes. So, as I noted, tax credits, they dominate the news and dominate the headlines. But if I can leave you with a couple of thoughts today, let me just think about just three that I saw in brief. First, as our Revenue Commissioner Hoffbeck opined in January, credits are an investment in Alaska's future. We completely agree. I'd take it a step further. I think it's an investment in today and Alaska's future. Now, they'll need to battle for merit during these tough economic times, and we appreciate that. It's clear, however, they are critical in fostering new projects and new oil for Alaska. Oil tax credits are working in the middle headline, even at these low oil prices. Economist Roger Marks notes that credits work to offset the high royalty burden, but also represent the foundational part of a larger oil tax system. Change the credits, you change the system. And lastly, on the far right, Moody's headline, now more than ever, financial lenders and evaluators are very involved in what's happening to Alaska's primary industry. When our government sneezes about eliminating credits or making big changes to the taxes, that cold spreads all the way to Manhattan and beyond. This has and continues to make, drawing new capital to Alaska more and more difficult. Two of three Kara's objectives from yesterday. Who can remember the third? So in closing, to Carl's title, wherever Carl is, how have tax credits changed the investment game? We think it's improved it. We're here and we're investing great sums of money looking for new oil, providing opportunities for Alaskans. Alaska has great rocks, but she's expensive. We need the right mix of explorers, developers, and producers to keep relevant, fill the pipe, and give Alaskans hope of a prosperous future. The tax system is working. It's successful at drawing new capital from exciting new financial partners and developers. This is creating real-time jobs and opportunities for Alaskans. Let's stop spooking the money. And lastly, just some policy considerations to consider. I've stated it more than enough. We believe the loss carry forward credit is critical, is an integral part of the oil tax system. You know, when we consider policy changes, we've seen what happens when you've done retroactive measures. We think that's very dangerous policy, and we would certainly recommend against those sorts of things. And lastly, you know, just consider that there are many companies that have lots of near-term projects, and how we phase any potential changes we believe is really important. The picture on the right is a bunch of drill pipe, right, from our island. No pipe, no production. And with that, I thank you, all your time and attention. Aloha, mahalo.